Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. I'm your host, Wendy Nystrom. Today's special guest is Dr. Paul Zeitz. He is the author of Revolutionary Optimism, 7 Steps for Living as a Love-Centered Activist. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to be here.
And you're a returning guest, which I think is kind of awesome that you wanted to come back. You've written a couple books, but this one talking about optimism. Before we dive headfirst into the book, though, you have a spectacular history. You're a medical physician. You're an award-winning champion of global justice and human rights. You worked on the global AIDS movement. Mm-hmm. You have a long history of that: climate transformation, racial and gender equity, authentic democracy, something we seem to be missing nowadays, and sustainable development. What led you down this career path? Because you've had many transformations of going from, medicine to activism to helping people. I mean, it is all linked, but what led you to do all of these things?
Thank you so
Easy
much.
Question,
yeah.
Right?
I love the question. It's a good one. And I think for me, I started my kind of intellectual journey in biology. And I was so fascinated by how the biological science, and then I got particularly excited and immersed in biochemistry, the interaction between the physical and then the chemical reactions and all that. And I just, I went to medical school. College, I was a biochemical major, I would say. And then I went to medical school because I thought, oh, the human body, it's like it works through biochemistry, so, and I'm a healer by nature, so a physician felt like a good pathway for me. Anyway, it turned out that, pretty quickly I knew that I thought differently than my peers, and that I'm squeamish, and I'm colorblind, red-green colorblind. So there were those 3 factors ended up making me realize I didn't want to do clinical medicine.
Yeah.
I was lost, and I found public health and preventive medicine, which is the health of the population. And in the science of that, I was taught by the people that did smallpox eradication. So we were talking about how do you take available technologies and go to scale. My first job out of all this was eradicating polio in the Americas. That was my starting place, So and then I lived in Africa for many years, and I worked on the AIDS crisis, and I worked on child health and all the areas, reproductive rights, family planning, all that on the ground in Africa mainly, and Latin America, and I worked in India as well. So then I had an awakening where I realized I was working in the systems. I was working in the UN, I was working in the USAID, US government, and I was like, that's not where the action is.
Yeah.
I became an advocate, and I left, and I realized that the greatest impact I could have would be to serve on the outside, doing political advocacy to define the policies, So I that's how I've spent the last 35 years doing all that. And I've had some successes and lots of failures, and I do a lot of fail forward learning. It's part of the evolutionary process, and it turns out it's also part of the revolutionary process, which I'm, happy that that's happening right now. So.
And your book is actually extremely timely. One thing I loved about it when I got to do a preview reading, so I was given steps 1 through 4 of the 7 steps of living as a love-centered activist. And one of the parts that I loved about it is you do have stories of people that you've worked with or met with along the way. You share your own personal stories of things that you've encountered. So just, a few of the things that I wanted to talk about was talking about anxiety and hopelessness. Mm-hmm. This is very timely, especially right now, because we have so much chaos going in the world. Everything that's happening politically, with religion, things that are happening in the Middle East right now. People are feeling a lot of anxiety and stress and anger. And we need to break free from this. And your book goes into that. Could you talk about the kind of transformations that, you're recommending to get people through this?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so touched that the book brought you to that question. I'm looking forward to hearing your view on the whole book, all 7 steps. So yeah, I was suffering from fear, anxiety, hopelessness. I was like, and I didn't know, I was like, so as a doctor, I started I worked on myself, so I could serve, how can I serve best? And So this book is the book that I wish I had when I was 20 or 18, maybe even 16. It's like a handbook. It's like got 23 practices about, first three are about self-liberation, liberating ourselves, unleashing our full power without all the mind chatter that pulls us down, and it explains how to heal from all that. We need all that, but we also can transcend it. And then, so that's inner self-liberation, steps 1 through 3. Step 4 is peace crafting. It's about how do we connect with other humans. It's about a relationship between two people, and it has peace crafting within the family, with my wife, with my kids, with my sister, my mother. Peace crafting applies at all, and organizationally in a broader way. So it's the heart of the book. Peace crafting is really the heart of the book, and then the last 3 steps are about collective liberation. It's about how do we imagine a positive future? How do we? It's called Imagineering, and then we have visions, radical visions. Turns out I'm not the only one that has radical visions. A lot of people do. We're just afraid to share them. So creating a safe space for unlocking all of our radical visions, radical imagination, and then building movements. Like none of us can do it alone. It's not about organizations doing it alone. It's about collective action. So movements are the way to organize for massive, rapid transformation. Step 6 is sparking a peaceful revolution. And I would argue that's what's happening in our time. And I hope the book will help people make sense, or it's called sense making, about what's happening now. Because it's very exciting in a way that there are peaceful revolutions that are emerging. People are ready for this healing to deal with the economic and social justice crises of our times. We're on the cusp of a possible leap forward in how humanity interrelates with each other.
I love the fact that you just left on that, because right now we are dealing with a lot going on in this world, and how people treat each other and speak to each other is very important. Your book, I was able to go through steps 1 through 4, and I do have specific questions on that. But I love the fact what you just said. I spoke at a meeting recently, and I was in favor of something and someone else was not in favor of it. And I got a little concerned, because she was kind of chattering away at people, shut up, sit down, shut up, sit down. And when I got up, she called me a dumb blonde and to sit down.
What?
And I kind of melted.
Meeting?
This was a public meeting at my local city. Yeah.
I would not participate in that meeting.
And I was just kind of like, oh. So it's that effect. And then but reading your book, she was triggered by something. Something triggered her that took her back. And that's why she reacted so outwardly hostily. And so now I have a little more insight into how people react to certain things. And I think this book will help people understand and learn how to talk to each other. So, your step 1 is it's go time, making choices. And as you said, how can I serve? Which you just went through that. How can I do that? But the best part of that is you said you have to serve yourself first. Think about yourself first, then your loved ones, then your community, then the world.
Right.
Could you describe what, that process is gold, because you have to put yourself first.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that hit home with you. I think it's an essential concept, and it's a thread through the whole book about self-care and like prioritizing that, actually. Cultivating a state of self-love. I lived with self-hatred and self-anger about myself for decades. And I have learned over time that I could relieve myself of that. It's a false narrative, but it's very painful to live with. And I struggled a lot. That's why I tried out all these are the best. It's like, this is the best. What is that expression? These are the best practices. There's 23 practices that I have tried and true. There's many more, of course, to help us not live with that, or manage it, So, and then once it's a game. I get triggered all the time by everything and everyone. So, that's where I start. Like and all humans are triggered, people with trauma, everyone has some kind of trauma. So then the trauma is a triggering catalyst, So it's like understanding how these things work in our minds and our bodies, and asserting dominion to be our highest self, our most loving self. Choosing that. It's a choice, actually. it comes down to choosing how you want to be. And so, then you're with your family, your loved ones. How can I support you? What do you need? Sometimes I need support. So it's like reciprocal. Just had a conversation with my family about what support they needed for what they're going on. And I need support for what's going on for me. And then the community, like, okay, I live in an environment. I'm in a community. Actually, I'm part of lots of different communities. So now I've learned to ask, how can I serve my communities? Sometimes I need to receive from my communities, and sometimes I'm available to serve. So you can't do everything. You do what you prioritize. And then globally, I think it's important for all humans, all of humanity, to understand that there is a global view of what's going on, and to aspire to include that as part of our experience of our life, because it's like kind of awesome that we're all together on this blue marble, and we are all interconnected, practically and visibly now with the internet and technology. Now we see how interconnected we are for the first time, and we have choices to make, and we have to choose whether we're going to go down a path of a love-centered path for repair, healing, and transformation, or we're going to continue on the current path of violence, suffering, and destruction, and likely self-destruction. So we're at the crossroads.
And that crossroad, and that's where you kind of lead on to step 2, which is the self-liberation, liberating oneself to find and act from your unique path of service. So you had a section in it that I actually really loved, and I could resonate absolutely with it. You said that you were a self-righteous jerk. And because you were in a work situation where someone disagreed with you and they weren't going to move forward. It was with respect to the AIDS epidemic in Africa, and you wanted to focus on orphans, and your boss was like, nope, we're not focusing on that. And I would have responded the same way you did. It's like, no, this is important. We need to do this. Don't argue with me, just do it. And I would have reacted the same way. And then you kind of took that self-assessment and you kind of took back and you're like, okay, you had to figure out what was the trigger, manage that figure, and then you were able to have conversations. I don't think you ultimately won the discussion, but
I did. Oh, no.
You did?
Oh, I totally won.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
Oh, it had major implications. We got $1 million for the first ever orphan and vulnerable children programs in Zambia, where I was living at the time. The economically productive parents were dying, so there was a secondary orphans crisis. No one had done anything. We were one of the first countries. We got $1 million. We won that battle.
Oh, right. I was reading through. It's like the look on her face was just no.
Yeah. That was another story. I haven't won all the battles, but yeah.
Oh, that is so amazing just to take that deep breath, pull back, and say, okay, I'm gonna face this with some logic and some reason, and I'm not gonna allow myself to get triggered. Which brings us to step 3, which is assessing the unified consciousness.
Yeah.
Opening yourself to higher levels of consciousness from which passion and visionary action spring forth. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's managing being triggered. And you have something called shape shifting or career shifting. Could you go into what all of that entails with step 3?
Yeah. So step 3 is really important. I felt like it was. What I've learned is that there's most humans have experiences of collective consciousness or unity consciousness. Like sometimes when a loved one dies, you feel like this sense of being interconnected, or when you have a new baby or something, a birthing, there's like an altered awareness. And then sometimes with sports, when you're an athlete and you get like a runner's high, and you kind of like see the beauty of everything. Or drugs do this too, actually, and alcohol. And religion, spirituality and religion, mystical experiences, and experiencing God or Jesus or Muhammad or whatever your version. Yes. So there is a common experience. So first of all, that is an experience. Yeah. Like it's real. Okay. Everyone has it. Then you can access it. So then it's like a practice to build your capacity to access that level of consciousness. And it is about like taking us into like our collective awareness and collective responsibility, because the challenges we're facing require us to act that way as much as possible. And then it's like build the muscle and then deploy it. Now I know, like I'm in a situation, like I'm in I'm at a protest, I'm at a direct action, I'm getting arrested, by the police, and I'm afraid, and I get all like, I go into a panic or something, and then I like, oh, Paul, take a breath, do the breathing practice, and connect to that, and then everything's fine. You're taking a stand for justice. You're taking a stand for love. We're advancing environmental social justice. So it's like we have to take a stand now. I can't sit by and not take action to address the climate emergency, for example. It is out of control. The response is failing. We have a new response proposal. We have a vision for a new way of structuring and acting upon the climate emergency. And we'd like to have a discussion about that with people, because what we're doing now isn't working.
Well, I mean, it's not working because everyone's still writing papers and talking to consultants and having discussions. We know it needs to be done. We can just implement now. Let's just act. Let's just do that. But one of the things to talk about when you in step 3 was taming your inner dragon. That resonated a lot with me because I do have that little flamethrower in my own head. And then what you call your 80-20 split. And also I'll end it with the fight, flight, freeze, or appease. I was raised to appease. I was always told, be quiet, don't make waves. I was raised to kind of be a perfectionist, don't cause trouble. And that was the hardest for me in my own circle of doom, to just say, you know what, I can't appease everyone all the time. I can't always go with the flow. I have to kind of do what I need to do. So how do people break out of that? That's childhood trauma coming in there. You got to work through that.
Yeah. I just recently in the last 5 years figured out that I had a very deep groove on trauma response. Those are trauma responses. Those are like, you have experiences that are traumatic, and then you respond with fight, flight, freeze. Fight, you're going to like fight. Freeze is like you go into like a freeze mode. Flight, freeze. What's the other one? Flight is you run. You run. Oh, you run and hide. You go under the covers, And then,
I did a lot of that too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we all do a little bit of all. But appease is this hidden one. Most people don't know about that one. But I have a very long history of responding in appeasement, and I'm healing from that, because we have to be willing to speak our truth. We respect everyone's ability to speak their truth. But I'm not necessarily wanting to not say my truth because it's going to upset you. I'm not responsible for your upsetness.
Yes.
I have to manage my own upsetness at your inability to have a conversation with me because you're so upset. Right.
And that's perfectly said, because I recently saw something like, I'm not responsible for your triggers. It's like, we're not, but you can play nice. You can be caring and understanding, and understand where maybe that person's coming from, and not respond with violence or anger or hatred.
Right.
But simultaneously, it's got to be reciprocated.
Right. Mutuality. Right. Exactly. So step 4 has a whole thing on, building trust and using love speech. So you're right. We have to show up as heart love centered, and we have to know that our words matter. Our words can be triggering, or they can be empowering. They can be shaming, or they can be counter shaming. So our words matter. It creates reality, actually, right? Because they respond to whatever you say. And so that's a practice, like it's not like automatically everyone's going to be able to shift. I work on it every day, like my wife I
think everyone does.
Yeah. So it's a lifelong journey to use love speech, but you're right. Yeah. It's how we say it matters.
And what you say to people is so important. I mean, I still wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm like, I can't believe I said that to somebody back in 2002. Guys, I don't forgive myself for anything, and I got to stop. I mean, if I'm just as fallible, and
I would call that person and apologize rather than keep your, just
we actually did reconnect. It was someone I used to work with back in New York, and she reached out to me, I think on LinkedIn, and we chatted one day.
Oh, great.
And I was just like, I can't believe she's reaching out to me, because I went through a bad phase and I was mean. And did
you discuss it with her?
Not outwardly, mind you, this is going back 3-4 years. Okay, so I'm still growing, but not outwardly. But it was just sort of a mutual understanding of, hey, I'm really sorry. And it was
No, I think
cool.
that's a big opportunity for a healing conversation. There is a
Yeah.
practice called courageous conversations.
Oh,
In the book, I forget what number it is, but it's in there somewhere. How to have it sounds like a courageous conversation to like. I bet you she has no memory of it, and it's like, or maybe she does. And
I
it's
mean,
like,
and simultaneously,
if it had
oh,
an impact on her, it's worth learning about that, and that wasn't your intent, or maybe it was your intent, or whatever.
it was
You
God,
could
it was
clear
healing
that,
for me.
yeah.
It was really healing because all of this regret and inner hatred I had was
Mhm.
kind of liberated. And that goes to your peace crafting. And then step 5 is your imagineering, unlocking political imagination and imagineering. Politics are rough right now. It's a rough place to be. How can people benefit from that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that politics is the competition of ideas. So, like we all like to watch baseball, football, basketball, or, whatever
Hockey.
sport. We humans are like competitive. We like to play games, we like to win, and so politics is just the competition of ideas. So I think it's really important for all of us to participate in the ideas of like, what do we want our politics to be? I think a lot from what I have figured out for myself is that a lot of my anger about at the community and world level or national level and world level, disaggregating that a little bit, thinking about my own country, I feel completely betrayed. I'm like, I read the Constitution and I don't think they're fulfilling on it. Like it's completely rotten, and I believe we need to transform it. And so I'm advocating for peaceful revolutions here and globally to create new governing frameworks. We have to go to the root cause. These things were created as caste systems, oppression systems of one group over another. And now humanity's evolved to the place where we understand that we're in this together. That's the unified
Yeah.
consciousness. And we need to create constitutional orders and systems of government. We have to transform our social, economic, and political systems.
So Star
Right.
Trek.
Yeah. And everyone's ready. We already know how to do it. It's not a
We
lack
are,
of knowing. Yeah, it's already happening in many places, but it just like we need a supportive environment for it to flourish and expand.
and a lot of these documents were written before they even had a fathoming idea of the level of communication and information we would be having at our fingertips every second of every day.
Thomas Jefferson didn't think it would last 10 years, and it's already 237 years. So it's archaic, it's sclerotic, it is broken. It hasn't been modified to expand rights in over 100 years. I mean, we can do better. That's my point. Like all the mess that we're seeing is because we have constitutional rot. The Democrat, the Republican, the brokenness, these elderly white men who should be with their grandchildren. Like the whole system is completely broken, and it's failing to address our crises. So we have a stake in this, and I don't think I have all the answers. I believe that we, the people, I want everyone to share their visions, their ideas, Imagineering collectively at the local
Exactly.
level. At the local level, we need community resilience and social resilience. We're going through a passage. We're going to have climate emergency stuff. We have a lot of crazy stuff happening where AI is coming, right? We have to learn how to live and work together. So, it's a different phase of humanity's experience, I hope.
Very different. I mean, and I kind of make the joke of we need to do a Control Alt Delete and just refresh everything
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we're at that phase now.
US 2.0, that's what I call it. Yeah.
Yeah, 2.0. We're at that phase now where we got to rethink a few of these things. So before I lose you on time, step 6 is sparking peaceful revolutions, and then we can jump into step 7. So do you want to combine those two before we lose you?
Yeah, step 6. We talked about it. Like I would explain what's going on, the massive mobilization on the Palestine liberation movement that's sweeping this United States, sweeping globally, unprecedented, truly unprecedented global mobilization. We have climate activism expanding rapidly around the world, and those two sectors are doing direct action. They're at the level of saying enough is enough. They're getting arrested, they're being thrown in jail, they're being beaten by police. and they're all part of peaceful nonviolence. You know, we're advocating, you know, Martin Luther King politics, peaceful nonviolence.
Yes.
We're coming at this from peace. If you know, we don't want to be beaten up,
No, I
but
don't think anyone does.
yeah. Anyway, so then the last step is unifying, and that is really about you know, getting to a place, you know, as a human, where we're in touch with our inner truth, and our inner compass is clear, and we know what direction we want to live in. We know how we want to serve, and then we align that with actually how we create our life. So we're actually living that inner truth. It's taken me a long time, and I'm getting closer to it now, you know. So it's hard work. And I say these things that it's not easy. All this is not hard to get to that alignment. And then collectively, it's about unifying collectively.
Yeah.
You know, looking at things interspiritually and interdisciplinary and intersectorally, and building bridges, the connective tissue between things. We have all this stuff happening, but we want to just build, you know, our understanding of between the silos. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that understanding between silos, that's a perfect analogy, because so many of us is like, this is what I believe in, and anyone who sits outside of my silo, I'm going to pick a fight with. Pointless.
Yeah.
Just learn, you know, if someone thinks something differently, then you say, that's okay. I disagree with it, but hey, you know, you do what works for you, as long as it's not violent and not hurting anybody. Fantastic. I mean, I know so many people that say, you know, this is the only way, and especially with politics, where they get on both sides, either super liberal or super conservative. And it's like, can we just meet in the middle and have an honest conversation? You can stay with your beliefs, that's fine, but we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. So I'm a registered independent, have been, always will be. I have voted for people in all political parties.
Me too.
And I am about, like, what you just said. That's what peace crafting is. Like, let's listen. When people are fixed in their point of view, what I'm doing is asking them if they're willing to explore the possibility that there might be other points of view, and if they want to have a conversation about, and if you get to yes on that, which takes a while,
Yes.
then it's about, you know, it has to be based on mutual respect, active listening, love speech, you know, all these things, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, I mean, in a public meeting, the way that woman talked to you about, I'm not even going to repeat it. That's like a violation of ground rules, you know. That is not, whoever was moderating that space, that's unsafe space. I would not participate. I don't participate in unsafe space, you know, because I have to take care of, that's self-care. Like, you should never have been talked to like that way, in public, in private, and have to sit there and, like, you know, handle that. That is a complete violation of love-centered love speech.
Yeah, the fact that she doesn't even know me, she knows nothing about me. But she was coming. I think people were just in shock. The reason the moderator didn't say anything is it was said rather quietly. I was just enough, you know, where we could hear it. But people were like, "Wait, could that just happen?" And I'm like, just forget about it.
I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah. You know, it's part of growth as well. Something, you know, yeah, it bugged me. Obviously, I'm still talking about it. It bugged me.
Yeah.
But you move on. And, you know, any future encounters, I will stick up for myself and say, you can't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate. You're an adult. You know, You're not 6 years old.
Or can we have ground rules? You know, can we treat each other with mutual respect? I mean, if not, ciao.
Yeah, you know, ground rules are important. And I might actually use that term. I think that's an important term to use. Getting back to your book, though, where can people buy it? This is this is a tutorial on how to be a better human being. So how do people find your book?
I'm so glad that you feel that way about it. It means a lot to me. Thank you. You can buy it by going to www.revolutionaryoptimism.com. And, you know, we have a whole set of support and resources for people, like change makers, support kit, basically.
Nice.
I really think that this is the kind of book that it's an opportunity to read it in groups, because it's hard work and we're in this together, and you can do all the practices. You can do one step a week or one step a month, and you can go through the steps together. And we have a guidebook, a journal, and workbook, so that you can have group discussions we offer some questions as well. And I think it's an opportunity to build friendships and build community and build neighborliness. It's like, it's deep stuff. And it's all of us are dealing with, all the same things going on, in our own way. And it's like, so I'm hoping that people will do it at home with their family or with their neighborhood or their church or their synagogue or their school or their work, whatever group, that's what I'm hoping. I think it would be fun for folks.
When we were talking, and the more I was thinking about this should be required reading for the office space, so you can have mutual respect among coworkers, because you don't always get people getting along all the time, and it's where you work.
Well, I'm happy to sell books, for the biggest, look, all the money is going back into social justice movements. It's not about making money and selling the books. I would love the book to get out there as far and wide, because it's the book I wished I had when I was 15 or 18. I wished I had it when I was 20, 30, 40. I didn't have it, so I had to write it, and I hope it resonates for folks.
Well, I think it does, because we're from the generation of where we were told, suck it up and deal. No, you have to learn. You have to understand why is this happening? Why am I triggering? How do I address this as an adult?
Yeah.
And that's what this book does. It walks you through those steps. So, Paul, thank you so much for writing this book. This is a necessary book.
I hope your podcast gets out far and wide. Thank you for having me. And thanks for all you do. I appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you too. And you have a wonderful day, guys. I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice. Check out Paul Zeitz's book. It is amazing. Go to the revolution optimism is important, and we need this. So thank you again for your time.
Peace. Yeah, thank you. No shame.